to your news roundup for the week from What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's me, Francis, from the podcast that maybe you listen to, or maybe you don't. You should listen to it, maybe, if you're enjoying these, but you're not listening to the podcast. I don't know how that happened, but I do have a show that's very, very similar to a lot of this. But this is when we talk about news. We ask, we do some questions. We read some comments when we get around to it. So, and I read from zines from Vietnam War era. So, all that stuff kind of gets rotated in as we go. So let's go ahead and get through our news for today. I've got a few things. It's slow military news at the moment. It seems, especially if you want to do like not necessarily so serious things. But there are some things that I really that they really stood out to me. So the C-130s are going to get a World War II style makeover for the next D-Day anniversary. If you're not aware, the military every year for D-Day manages to find an old man or a handful of old men who jumped onto the beaches of Normandy and were like, "Do you want to do it again?" And some of them are like, "Fuck yeah!" So hell yeah to them. But they also always like the military has maintained like a couple of the troop uh, airplanes that flew over. So, but like they're World War II era. We don't make those airplanes anymore. So like they're just we don't make parts for them. We can't update them or anything. So they just kept getting like fewer and fewer of them for anybody to do this like insane shit with. Like first off, an air show is batshit insane. Hurling old men out of an airplane is crazy. I'm with it. I mean, they said yes. I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to tell them no. They jumped into D-Day. They if they want to jump again, fucking be my guest. But I am glad that we're finally using an updated airplane. The C-130 is still a 70-year-old airplane, but we still make parts for it, and we still make new ones. I think we make new ones. Somebody makes new ones. None of the ones I were on were ever new, but you know there are updated parts for it. So what they're doing is they're just gonna like paint these C-130s to look like the troop carrier airplanes and or bombers and things like that, and just like look, we're just gonna slap it on, and we've got this airplane that we got people who know how to fly it. That this is nothing new to this. We don't have to have a whole like new safety brief because you know a C-130 is meant to fling yourself out of when you are in the army. That's one of the things that you do. You get into this if you do airborne. I did not because it sounds insane to get into a perfectly good airplane and then hurl myself out of it. Also, no real use for airborne these days. Don't see a purpose for it. But also, I will admit, back then it was because that sounded insane, and also I was scared of jumping out of an airplane because I'm normal. But shout out to these guys. Glad that they're gonna give them a little something newer to fly, pretty it up. You know, it doesn't have to be too complicated. Next up, the Army, the Navy, and the Marines now have no top leaders. This is objectively kind of funny. So what's happening is Tommy Tuberville, the Senate, I think he's a senator, has decided to hold up all of the nominations for the these top leaders that have to go through the Senate, and they have to be approved by the Senate. So Tuberville's holding them up because the military is like, yeah, if you are in the military and you have an unwanted pregnancy, we'll help you get an abortion. It's fine. Because you know there's military bases in states where that is not allowed, and the military says, yeah, we'll get you the health care that you need. So Tuberville has decided to hold up all of the nominations. So like there are a lot of flag officers and a lot of like all these people who are trying to get promoted, but they can't because they have to be Senate approved. And it is very like Tuberville's an asshole. First off, obviously, and does this. There's a lot of like, oh, this hurts our readiness. I mean, there of the list of things that hurts our readiness, unscrolling it down. Uh, not having top leaders at the moment would be pretty low on that list. I don't think, I think the rampant sexism and the constant deployments that people, we're not even in combat anymore, but people have been away from home more than ever. Just generally how much it sucks to be in the military, but not even like a fun sucks anymore. Like it was fun when we're all like, okay, we're all living in a tent and it sucks. We're all we're 18, 19, and 20 years old. You don't want to live like that, like when you're not doing your hua shit as we call it. You want to come back to the barracks and take a shower, and you want your hot water to work and to not be breathing in black mold. So there's other problems that the military is gonna come across. This is still kind of funny, and I, I don't know how you fix this. I always think it's very funny when like this thing that is always like we've just always done it this way and never had to worry about the rules because we never had a guy that was this big of an asshole, and then that guy is just like, huh, you know what I could do, and then he goes and does some asshole shit. So. Uh, you don't have to hand it to Tuberville, but he's doing some very funny shit. Next up, we have after legal battles, Sikh graduates Marine Corps boot camp with beard and turban. I love these stories for a couple reasons. One, I think if you're gonna do this, fair is fair. If I gotta listen to the chaplain fucking pray before the change of command ceremony, and I gotta other people can wear their crosses, why not these guys? The other thing that I love about this is that it really is breaking down the whole like there's no reason for the military to not just allow beards because this guy's a private like and they always said you can't make a gas mask seal, which is incorrect. There are plenty of other countries, men with beards have been perfectly fine with it. I maintain that it's because they don't want to have to come up with new regulations for like anything about the beard, because that like as soon as the military says yes, you can grow a beard, there's going to have to be like a 500-page document on like the correct wear and appearance of the beard in the military and how long it can be and how. But like some people, their shit's patchy. So how do you deal with that? Like, sorry, if the sergeant major thinks your shit's too patchy, you can't grow a beard. You're not allowed to. I fully support beards in the military. I have no desire to grow a beard. Obviously, I've been out and I don't have a beard. They are not for me. I find them very itchy. But if that's what you guys want to do, knock yourselves out. But I do feel that like I'm not gonna say that like you're gonna hit all of your recruiting goals, but you're gonna make a lot of people super happy, and a lot of people might reenlist just because you allowed beards. However, you've got to do it. I don't know how you're gonna manage it, but go ahead and manage it one way or another. You're gonna have at least a good like probably a good like 3 or 4 years there. But I don't know all the kids that are joining the military now. I don't know if they give a shit about having beards or not. So probably not. Those kids got better things to do. They're more worried about what are the Zoomers worried about? Equity and equality. And I mean, this is honestly something that helps that out. It shows a military that's open to change. It's going woke. So I hope it's ready to go broke. Uh, by I assume the defense budget going down 0.5% and just crashing the entire defense contracts industry. Anyway, last up, country music star Craig Morgan reenlists at age 59. This was from late last month that I first saw this, and I've been kind of sitting on it, especially with the recent red giant bearded jackass singing about people who are on welfare eating fudge, I think. So now we have this guy who's re-enlisting. So he was in the military, he was part of Inherent Resolve, and then now he's joining back at almost 60. So I understand that this is a way to try to gin up recruiting. I don't know who this impresses, but obviously I'm not a I know other like weird people like me. I don't know who these things kinds of work on. Perhaps they do. This was at the Grand Ole Opry, so perhaps the fine people of the South slash Midwest, Mississippi Basin, Kentucky, Tennessee, those areas. Perhaps they appreciate this more than I do. That a man would join the army at the age of 59. I want to know what his drill weekends are going to be like. I want to know like what he does. Does he have to be there for the shitty meetings? Like, does he have to do like? I had to call into a leadership meeting uh, the Wednesday before drill weekends. Does he have to do that shit, or is he just a 59-year-old specialist? Because that's embarrassing. I mean, enlist. He's got to be at least coming in as an NCO. I would hope. But here's to you, Craig. I hope you don't get deployed. I hope you don't get sent to Lithuania for like 6 months. What's his MOS? Do you think? Like, cause you can't just be in the army band. You have to get an MOS, and then you try out for the army band, and then maybe you can change your MOS. But you don't like join the army. I'm gonna play the trombone. No, you can't. You can't do that. So what is this guy's? I mean, is he a fuel? What would be the most blue collar? Like an 88 Mike, I imagine. Truck driver? Yeah. He's gonna be a truck driver. Uh hauling gigantic targets down MSR Tampa. Knock yourself out, man. Hope it all works out for you, I suppose. When's he getting out? Is he gonna get retirements? There's a lot of questions that there's a lot of paperwork that's going to be having to be done by some uh, grip of 42 alpha somewhere that could have been really avoided by just being like, can we just hire you to just advertise for us? I guess maybe him being in the military is cool. He's not stealing valor by, even though he was already in. I don't know, man. Like, ugh, I can't imagine. Just, I can't. I'm of a reasonably healthy stage now at the age of 40, and I know plenty of 40, people in 40s and 50s in the military, obviously, and I just it's a young man's game. And it's certainly not a 60-year-old man who plays the guitar for a job. It's not his thing. So again, though, good luck, Craig. We'll see you in the chow hall. Our readings today are going to be coming from the Arctic Arsenal, published by and for the GIs at Fort Greely, Alaska. Fort Greely is about 100 miles outside of Fairbanks in Alaska. Nate has spoken many times about serving in Alaska and how much it sucks if you are not of a specific kind of person who, like, Alaska is really great for a certain kind of person. Nate was not one of them. I am not one of them either. But if you really like outdoorsy stuff, Alaska is great for you. So this is the Arctic Arsenal. This was put out in 1971. One of the many zines that kind of cropped up during the Vietnam War. Fort Greely is still an active military base as well. It's a launch site for anti-ballistic missiles. Anything close to Russia as we can. Obviously, we're gonna have that. So it does still exist. I don't. It probably doesn't exist like in the size that all the bases did during Vietnam with all the mobilizations and everything. Uh, I don't know. I wasn't there in 1971. I certainly have not been there in 2023. So, but it does exist still a military base out there. So let's start with this first one called Enemas for the Establishment. Now, this is not one of the longer pieces. These are all kind of short news snippets around the force, but it's all leftist demonstrations and everything. So we start with If Only They Could. 48 GIs of the 1st Air Cav Division recently made sure to let their feelings be known about the Vietnam War. In an advertisement they took out in the New York Times just before last month's big anti-war demonstrations in Washington and San Francisco, they said, quote, "We urge you to march for peace April 24th. We do it ourselves, but we're in Vietnam." Next one. Another city against the war. Voters in Madison, Wisconsin officially and overwhelmingly went on the record April 6th to call for the immediate withdrawal from Vietnam. 66% of the ballots called for the following resolution. It shall be the policy of the people of Madison that there shall be an immediate ceasefire and immediate withdrawal of all United States troops and military equipment from Southeast Asia so that the people of Southeast Asia can settle their own problems. Fair enough. Next one, competition for the VFW and American Legion. Vietnam vets are getting their stuff together. Since 1967, the Vietnam Veterans Against the War, the VVAW, has enrolled 9,500 active members, and it's getting bigger with every returning troop plane. Interested NAM vets can write for more information. VVAW 9th floor, Vermont Avenue, Washington, D.C. Next up, Black GIs in Germany organize. Of all U.S. troops in Germany, 13% are black. After cross burnings, Ku Klux Klan organizations, and indifference by the MPs and brass, 15 black groups have been formed to fight racism at bases in Heidelberg, Bad Hersfeld, Berlin, Frankfurt, and other cities. Next up, April maneuvers. The month of April continues to bring out the best in America's servicemen. April 11th. About 100 sailors from the Birmingham Naval Yard of Washington State took part in a demonstration to protest the departure of the USS Constellation for Southeast Asian waters. April 18th, the contingent of 600 GIs led a march in Austin, Texas, of 3,000 people calling for participation in the Washington anti-war demonstrations. Next up, can't keep him in line. By a vote of 450 to 155, delegates to the White House Conference on Youth recommended President Nixon that the military action in Southeast Asia be halted immediately. They also overwhelmingly favored legalization of marijuana and ousting J. Edgar Hoover from the FBI. Final one, U.S. Congressman takes on the brass. Ron Dellums, the new California representative, is making a series of visits to military posts. Giving short notice to post commanders, his aim is to investigate the conditions of barracks and stockades and talk to troops firsthand, urging them to oppose this war. Good to see that not a lot has changed, that they still need somebody to go and make sure that they're not staying in moldy barracks from World War II. Interestingly enough, though, I stayed in those moldy barracks from World War II as well. So the Vietnam vets had it better by virtue of just being, closer and less black mold to it. Okay, so the final thing, disclaimer, the Arctic Arsenal is published once a month or whenever we can afford it by active duty GIs at the Fort Greely, Alaska. Opinions expressed herein are not to be considered an official expression of the Department of Defense, Department of the Army, or any other governmental agency, and by no means are their opinions to be considered our official expression either. The whole every troop has to put things expressed here do not represent the DoD. Yeah, man, we get it. You're a fucking communications NCO. Nobody thinks that you talking about the string cheese you ate for lunch is official DoD policy, bro. It's fine. You don't have to save it for funny stuff, not for that stuff. You're not that important. So next up, we have this. This is actually a reprint from another GI newspaper. So it seems newspapers share things back and forth. This is a reprint from another GI paper, The Ally from Berkeley, California. A lot of GI newspapers in California. A lot of that probably because hippies, but also big naval yards and everything in San Diego. All right. In the midst of the Cali trial, the Pentagon suddenly discovered something was wrong. So the Cali trial is the trial of William Cali, who was convicted of the My Lai massacre. He was the only one that got convicted. He did war crimes. He can go fuck himself. So in the midst of the Cali trial, the Pentagon suddenly discovered something was wrong. They had made a mistake. While the country was reacting to the Cali verdict and the Laos fiasco, slick Madison Avenue commercials were telling TV viewers that today's army wants to join you. Pretty girls, travel and see the world. Rock groups are all recruited to enlist the innocent. But the Pentagon suddenly realized the Army's advertising blunder and halted the ads. There were also complaints. The Army had received $10.6 million for a 13-week crash campaign to sell an all-volunteer Army to high school seniors nearing graduation. The Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps complained that the Army was depriving them of free advertising, usually offered by radio and TV. Yes, correct. Fuck y'all. I can't help myself but to laugh when the army fucks over the other branches. Like it is the most childish thing. And like if you listen to Lions Led by Donkeys, you will hear many times where like the army and the Marines infighting cause them to really step on their own dicks. But god damn it, if I can't stop it. Another reason, and probably for the least bothersome, was the flood of complaints from the 615 large advertising agencies that only 7 of them were invited to bid on the Army's advertising business. Army publicity costs have jumped this year from 3.1 million to 18.1 million. But even with this amount of money, the Army might not be able to compete with the Cali verdict, the dirty war, and the spring anti war demonstrations already beginning to appear on TV. The long term goal of the Pentagon publicity effort is a zero draft by June of 1973. But if enlistments are zero and re ups are zero, then there will be a zero volunteer army. If it proves equally difficult to maintain the draft, then all that will be left in the army will be the biggest zeros of all, the lifers. So, yeah, it's hard to like sell all this stuff when it's like, oh, you guys are just doing war crimes. You're just over there doing war crimes, and my tax dollars are funding that. So they had to kind of pull back their advertising because of some blunders. Not a little different, but not completely unlike having to pull the army now having to pull all of the Jonathan Major stuff. That they spent all this money on to rebrand. They wanted to rebrand to I guess rebrand to be all that you can be, and really pick the wrong guy because like after the be all that you can be commercials started to come out, I believe he was accused of assault, and they had to just put the fucking brakes on all of them. So you know, sometimes it's assault, sometimes it's war crimes. One way or the other, you gotta halt the advertising dollars there. Maybe downplay it a little bit, and hope that you come out on the other end. I suppose I'm not sure how the army. Like I would be really interested to read a book about like how recruiting had changed throughout Vietnam, or if there was recruiting. I mean, I guess there had to be. Like people did volunteer, but if you also have a draft, I don't know. That'd be interesting. Somebody recommend me a book. All right, and this is going to be the last piece from the from the Arctic Arsenal. Lifer of the Month award, and for those of you non-military, lifers are the ones who join and are staying in, uh, spending their career in the military. This being the first issue of the Arctic Arsenal, it's appropriate that our first Lifer of the Month award should go to none other than Major General James Hollingsworth, Commanding General, United States Army, Alaska. General Hollingsworth is most known for his image as the pistol-packing George Patton of the Arctic North, gaudy, large, and American or loud and American as the flag, mother, and apple pie. However, our selection of him as Lifer of the Month is not due to these less than unique attributes. Instead, he has been chosen on the basis of his profoundly philosophical views on matters of war and GI rights. While serving in Vietnam in 1966 in the Big Red 1 Division, Hollingsworth gave an interview to a reporter for the London Times. As if he were a high executive Death Incorporated, Hollingsworth explained his job with typical lifer logic. Quote, I don't know how you think about war. The way I see it, I'm just like every other company boss. Ginning up the boys all the time, except that I don't make monies. I just kill people and save lives, end quote. And being the true executive leader, everything is done with efficiency and a smile on the face. Like Hollingsworth says, there's no better way to fight than going out to shoot VCs. And there is nothing I love better than killing Kong. No sir. So much for Hollingsworth's philosophical viewpoints on war. Good old James is all for defending America, protecting freedom, and killing those nasty commies. But don't try to use your constitutional rights if you're a GI. According to him, that's a no-no. In 1969, as commanding general of Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Hollingsworth was responsible for railroading 8 GIs to the stockade because they wanted to hold meetings to discuss the Vietnam War and racism in the Army. Due to public pressure and a lawsuit, Hollingsworth was forced to back down and release the 8, discharging them all. By his actions, we can assume that Hollingsworth feels it's all right for GIs to die in Nam, but not for them to talk about it. For being such a typical, down-to-earth general, Hollingsworth really deserves his award. The honorary title of Lifer Jim and his own personal copy of this issue of the Arctic Arsenal. So this one was a short one, only about 5 or 6 pages, and I can only find 2 so far. But I'll kind of dig in a little bit more and see what else I can find with the Arctic Arsenal. Here in the boys up in Alaska, I can't imagine something being worse than like being drafted and then having to go to Alaska. Just like too horrible. And then Vietnam, I guess, like even worse. It just keeps getting worse the further up the ladder you go. Anyway, so that's the Arctic Arsenal, and we will read some more next week. Okay, it's time for the final segment. Hey, Dad. The questions, your burning questions for a dad about dadhood. I'm not claiming ever to be a expert. We're all muddling through it, but I'm here to muddle with you. So if you have questions about fatherhood, or if you have questions that you need to ask a dad, we're always willing to take those. I talk about them here. We talk about them on the show because that's kind of what we're doing here. Is this grand dive into what being middle-aged means for a bunch of fucking millennials now. So our question today comes from Thomas. Do you feel like you want to intentionally introduce your kids to extracurricular recreational activities, or just let the child be exposed to the world and see what catches their eye? It's very simple. You just do both. No reason you can't do both of those. My daughter is into Irish dance because there's a restaurant called Raglan Road in Disney Springs, and it's an Irish pub, and it's got a lot of it's got Irish dancers in it. So she saw that, and also she's just encountering the Irish dance and immediately like, no, I want to do that. I want to be a part of that. She's 3 years old, so at that time she's 8 now, and she's been doing Irish dance ever since, and she's great at it. She has a lot of fun. She totally found that on her own, but believe me that I am certainly just like, have some Star Wars, have some Back to the Future. Here's all the stuff that I like. Now she's actually like wanting to watch movies. She had this thing for a while. She didn't want to watch movies. Now she's like, okay, I'm ready to watch. We're watching the Marvel movies, which is it's fine. I've watched way worse. So, but some of them I like. They're fine. But I can also start introducing her to a lot of other stuff that I really like, based off of those things. Eventually, I'm going to get to show her Blade, and eventually, I'm going to get to show her Jurassic Park and things like that. And yeah, that is like it's you got to watch out because you don't want to impose yourself too much on your kid. I understand that, but like also a kid is like a best friend that you kind of get to mold. My daughter would love to play Mario Party and eat pizza with me any night of the week. That's awesome. So you have this opportunity to get your child into the things that you're into, and I highly encourage it. But also don't stifle them. Obviously, if they wander off and they see something else that they want to take a look at, take a look at that. I think I know anything about Irish dance. Think my wife did before all this? Of course not. But you got Google. You do a little research, figure it out. We got her into a school, and now she enjoys that. So, but she also loves to do Lego Star Wars with me. So it works out. They become their own person. But if you do it right, after they are no longer teenagers, because I hear that that's going to be a rough time. But after that, if you do it right, they kind of become your friend, and that's what I'm shooting for. Is that like, she's 21 and she still likes me, and not just like I have to get to the other side of the fucking country. So hopefully we're doing that for her. So if you guys have any other questions, please feel free, send them in. I ask these. I usually do this on Monday, but feel free to send an email to sergeantjoker@hellofawaytodie.com, or you can DM me on Twitter, Army Strang. I'm on Blue Sky under the same thing. However you want to get to me, you can get it to me. All right, as always, guys, thanks for listening. We're going to have a lot of new stuff going into the store probably this week. I just got patches in. I'm going to get stickers in. If you're part of the $10 Patreon tier, those care packages are going to be going out hopefully next week. I should have everything consolidated and ready to go. And if you don't know about the Patreon, that's where you can listen to all of our bonus content. Hellofawaytodie.com. You can find all your information there. You can go to patreon.com/hellofawaytodie, and you can find us there as well. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.